Hey everybody. So I want to begin, if you're a regular to this channel, you already know this, but I want to begin by saying that I am autistic. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I'm ultimately going to come back around to that point in this video. So I bring that up first because I want to make it clear that I am not just bashing people for the sake of bashing them, not just coming out of nowhere, and I'm not even bashing anybody in this video. I want to make that very clear as well. I'm not meaning to mistreat people. I'm not trying to cut somebody down, but I am expressing aggravation and confusion and that sort of thing. So I just watched a video that showed up in my recommended YouTube videos for some reason. It's from a channel called Ace Dad Advice. Now the ace, I found out, the ace there does not mean ace as in of exceptional quality or skill. It's the ace as in short for asexual. The video is titled, How Do I Know That I'm Agender? Now that is agender, one word, not agender, two words. And I made that mistake too when I first clicked on it. But yes, this is agender as in having no gender. And so this guy, it's very bizarre from the outset because this is a person that claims to have no gender. Yet their channel is called Ace Dad Advice. Dad is the male gendered signifier within the parental relationship. And it makes no sense. It's nonsensical. And it's a contradiction. And here's the thing, I found that when I comment on matters related to this new fad of, the identity movement, this identity I think identity movement refers to something else. I don't think that's what it's actually called, but this fascination with just this endlessly rotating smorgasbord of bizarre personal identities and everything. When I comment on this, invariably people from that alleged identity group, and I'm going to get in a minute, I'm going to get to what I think you all are actually identifying. But anyway, when I think about people, or whenever I comment on this, people from these alleged identity groups always react negatively, they react badly, and they always assume that I'm trying to bully them or make fun of them or put them down and that kind of thing. I am sure that this video will be called agenderophobic, even just like when I did my commentary on fictosexuality, people who are only attracted to, sexually attracted to fictional characters. They're going to, they said that was fictophobic, and that sort of thing. This is not meant as some sort of bigoted smack in your face or something like that. You have to realize that, the people, these identity people, the identity crowd, I guess you could call them, it is true. What they don't understand is that it is true that people will bully others that they don't understand. That's very true. People will bully something that they don't understand. And that's absolutely true. The thing is, usually spreading understanding and spreading awareness about something is what works to diminish the bullying, to reduce the bullying. It works to promote acceptance. Paradoxically, the more the identity group, there's not one identity group, but the more this identity thing manifests in wider and wider manifestations with greater and greater degrees of public awareness, they seem to be getting less and less acceptance, which is usually not how it goes. And what I think is at the core of that is because so much of this is about presenting ideas, not only ideas that are not understood, or presenting personal identifiers that are not understood. It's about presenting personal identifiers that cannot be understood. The inherent contradiction of it all, accepting something contradictory, is at the base of it. And we see this in this thing that this person who is both agendered and a dad, that's kind of the beginning of it. That's or kind of an example of it. So how does he know that he's agender? This is the topic of the video, and he said that for him, performing traditionally male behavior is not performing traditionally male behavior has always seemed just that, performative to him. It's never resonated with him. It's always felt like he was putting on an act anytime that he had to embody any sort of behavior that was associated with men and with masculinity. Okay, so the other side of that, though, was that he also did not resonate with femaleness and femininity and female traditional behavior and that sort of thing, so he felt no need to transition. So he decided that he was agender. That was the basis for finding out he was agender. And, you know, my first question to that is, how do you know you're not just you? And, you know, cynically, yes, that gets at the heart of a lot of what I think is going on here. Is a lot of these people don't want to accept themselves as mundane and boring, and so this gives them an avenue into being interesting. And the first time I realized that was when I was watching something. I think it was like some kind of roundtable. It was a roundtable discussion type thing that was about. It was about, I think, the show Sex Education on Netflix. I think it was related to that in some way, or something like that. It was connected to some kind of show. But they had this one guy on there that was non-binary, calling himself non-binary, and you know, so it was things like he had a beard and earrings and I think some other female identifiers too and everything. And he said something that really stood out to me. He said, the thing I love about being, or the best thing, I forget how he introduced it, but he said, the best thing about being non-binary, something like that, and then the part I remember is that I get asked all the sex questions. And that was odd to me, but it told me something very much about him. Now, obviously, I can't apply this to everybody, but it really told me something about him, that this identity was not just a source of clarity about who he was. It was a source of, it was an embodiment of why he was exceptional, something exceptional about him. It gave people a reason to be more interested in him than he actually was, than they might have otherwise would have been. And so that's where that inevitable question arises of what's the difference between gender and personality, that sort of thing. And ultimately that's a rhetorical question, by the way. I know ultimately that it refers to traditionally masculine or feminine behavior. I get that. But anyway, he goes on to say, he goes on to approach the question of how is agender different from non-binary? And his answer is to say that if you should use whatever language is meaningful to you. If the term non-binary is meaningful to you, then you should use that. And if agender is meaningful to you, then you should use that. And this is where I talk about, we keep coming to the whole fundamental problem with all of this is that it presents a situation where not only don't we understand what these people are talking about, but we can't understand what these people are talking about. They have just raped and pillaged the human language or the human concept of language to such a degree that it becomes meaningless. The whole point of words is that words refer to some things and not other things. That once a word is applied to something, it inherently excludes everything else that is not within that definition. You know, this is a notepad. It is a notepad because it has all the qualities of being a notepad. It fulfills all of the definitions, all of the definitional qualities of being a notepad. And because of that, this is a notepad and this is a set of headphones. They describe different things. And so words have to mean something, otherwise communication becomes impossible. I mean, if words don't mean something, then orangutan, jungle gym, watermelon, uh, boxing gloves, Washington, D.C., Frankenstein. See? I mean, that was personally meaningful to me. And so that's what's like at the core, I think, of the core of the negative response, the consistently negative response that this sort of thing gets. Normally, when a marginal group is when a marginal group comes into the cultural foreground, when they really join the cultural zeitgeist, uh, understanding and acceptance increases. And there's something about this identity thing that sets it up so that it can only encounter rejection. And I think that lack of definitional clarity is what's at the heart of it. We can't accept something that we can't. To accept something is to understand it. If you can't understand something, you're just tolerating it. And so, if you can't accept something but you accept that it exists and don't interfere with it, I should say, then you're just tolerating it. But if you want acceptance, acceptance is based on understanding. And we're setting up an endless world of contradictions that are never explained and never sorted out. And so it's impossible to have the necessary clarity that begins with the process of acceptance. I can remember I was born in '83, so I was very much a product of the 1990s push towards cultural education and cultural acceptance. I had countless people from different different more marginal groups within different ethnic backgrounds and that kind of thing do presentations for my classes through the years, explaining why this is what kind of people we are, what we are as a culture, our cultural practices and everything. Learn about this, and yes, that sort of thing does help expand acceptance. The thing is, there's inevitably going to be a Q&A portion of any discussion, of any presentation like that. And when you ask, if you ask it's kind of like, let's say, I don't know, the Amish came and did a presentation for your classroom, and some innocent little child puts up their hand and says, well, how do you go to the bathroom without running water? And they could say, oh, well, we use outhouses or something like that. They can answer, there's an answer that resolves the contradiction in someone's mind. With this group, this kind of, I almost want to call them the willfully marginalized. With this group, if you try to pursue understanding, the nanosecond you've asked a question, you've confessed your bigotry. And I think that's, very much, it's very much at the heart of this. If you're setting up something that cannot be understood, then, you're going to end up spending 100% of your time trying to explain away the unexplainable. It's kind of like, there's another video I watched from a YouTuber called Lily Alexander that I've thought back and forth about whether or not I want to respond to this video, and it's probably more trouble than it's worth to do an actual response to it. But the video was called "What Are Women?" and it was seeking to resolve the question, "What is a woman?" As you know, "What is a woman?" is a popular kind of Trump question. Not Trump the politician. Trump as in to challenge, to gain victory. A popular Trump question from the anti-trans side of the discussion, essentially because it's impossible to give a definition that fully encompasses biological women and transgender women without contradicting the objective traits of personhood within each category. So And ultimately, what we've come down to, where we found ourselves, is that people on the conservative right will easily say that a woman is an adult human female, and and people on the far progressive left will go through these long, circuitous explanations that ultimately go nowhere. But the most common, but those explanations tend to boil down to a woman is anyone who says they're a woman. And so in Lily Alexander's video, she acknowledges that saying a woman is anyone who is a woman is anyone who says they're a woman is a circular definition that provides no resolution. And so you watch the end, she's going to attempt in this video to identify what a woman is and provide a definition. And so I sit down and I commit to watching this 40-plus-minute video thinking, great, now I'm finally going to get a satisfactory answer to this question that both nullifies the trump card being played by the right wing and opens up an avenue into greater acceptance. So good, I'm going to get what I need out of this. And what she does is she guides us through this very long, very long-winded, extremely drawn-out explanation of the Marxist exploitation of labor and how that applies to women, and how women and she goes into the women's marginalized status as labor on behalf of men and all of this crap, and goes through this long thing, just endlessly going through, goes through all of that, then gets to this thing about gets to the what is a woman question, and says that adult human female doesn't describe women because those words were made up, and therefore, because the definitions of those words were made up, and because they were made up, they're inherently subjective and were just put in place by people in power to maintain their control, and on and on and on. And finally, at the end of this very long, very snobby, very snooty, pretentious video, she finally gets to answering the question of what is a woman, and she says, well, I prefer to have this is paraphrasing, but it's like, I prefer to have an acceptance mentality. I prefer not to be a gatekeeper. I prefer to think more about welcoming people in and being concerned with what they need rather than thinking of reasons to exclude them. Okay, so after acknowledging that a woman is anyone who says they're a woman is a circular definition, and guiding us through this long and long-winded explanation of everything, she gets us to answering the question of what is a woman, and her answer is ultimately no different than a woman is anyone who says they're a woman. But what those two answers have in common, that Lily Alexander's answer and Ace Dad Advice's answer, what they have in common is that they are the answers of people that are either deliberately trying not to answer a question, or don't realize that the question they're asking has any possible answer other than they're wrong. Either way, it always comes back to, we don't have an answer for this, just accept that you don't know what, just accept that, just accept us anyway, even though we don't have an answer for this, that kind of thing. And that's what we always come back to. Why are you even, it's almost like, why are you even bothering making these videos if you don't have answers? Oh, right, because you want to be accepting and you want people to feel welcome and blah, all of this wonderful virtue signaling. So after my own long-winded explanation, or my own long-winded diatribe there, I want to come around to what I personally feel is probably going on here. As you know, as I said before, I'm on the autism spectrum, and I talk about autism a lot. And what I kept thinking as I was watching this video, and remember, I cannot diagnose anybody. I am not making a diagnosis here. But what kept occurring to me is that autistic people, and I admit that even I struggle with this, even I included struggle with this, autistic people struggle with understanding the gray area between polarities. they don't understand that, there's that great line in Harry Potter, the world is not divided into good people and Death Eaters. And that's the thing, they don't understand the extreme between uh, polarities. And I think that's probably why, in a lot of this, the identity crowd cannot understand the difference between bullying and the legitimate frustration and aggravation of people who are tired of asking questions and getting non-answers and that kind of thing, as I just described in those two examples. But it also comes down to something like, you don't feel traditionally masculine and you don't feel traditionally feminine either, therefore you must not have a gender. Well, no, the reality of it is that those brackets are much, 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 much wider than you give them credit for, and there's a lot of a Venn diagram crossover between the two in terms of what is traditionally masculine and traditionally feminine, what is things that are considered masculine and feminine. I mean, I don't know. Again, I sound like I'm making fun of this guy when I say this. I know, I mean, it is a legitimate question. It's like, what are you talking about when you talk about doing these things? It's like, were you in a weird situation where like peeing standing up didn't feel right, but peeing sitting down doesn't feel right either? So now you straddle the toilet tank and stand on your head or something? I mean, I don't know, but it feels like it feels almost like that. It's and it just comes down to a reality of, no, the identity that is you, all of the things that make up the identity that are you, are way, way, way too multivariant to be fit comfortably into two categories like that. And it doesn't make you any less of a man or any less of a woman or any less male or any less female or any less of a guy or any less of a gal or anything like that. It's not, it's ultimately, you're just you. Nearly everything that I'm into would not be described as traditionally masculine. I'm like the gentleman who made this video. I'm sitting here in my dimly lit, by myself in my dimly lit apartment, surrounded by cerebral intellectual reading material and various toys and accoutrements of my favorite pop culture icons and stuff like that, icons of icons, if you will, and all of that stuff. And here's the thing, I'm autistic, and because of that, I feel like looking at this guy is game recognizing game. I feel like what I'm really hearing here is just someone describing the experience of being autistic. These polarized extremes don't make sense to you. You don't understand why those polarized extremes exist. They don't make sense to you. It feels performative going through those things. Everything you described there is a description of the feelings of someone who is autistic. And that's what's really concerning to me as someone who's blogged about autism and advocated about autism and that sort of thing, is that I feel like a lot of this comes down to autism. And autism is a spectrum. There are very mild manifestations of it. There are very extreme manifestations of it. But fundamentally, this inability to reconcile wide polarities, and in other words, difficulty with black and white thinking, that is inherent to autism. That is a facet of autism. People who can't distinguish between constructive criticism and bullying, that is autism. That is a facet of autism. People who don't feel deeply connected to traditional societal modes, social expectations and societal modes of behavior is a manifestation of autism. On and on and on. And for the sake, I know this is not something that will be well received, but I will clarify that I mean it constructively, and hopefully it will eventually get across to some people. I really do think that a lot of this endless pursuit of endless, bizarre identities and everything. It is just a way of identifying yourself into feeling special rather than accepting that you're just you. And that's the thing. Even though autism would be a more likely and more understandable diagnosis here, it's not, autism is not sexy, it's not fun, it's not interesting. In fact, it's a really fast way to switch off social acceptance. It's a really fast way to turn a lot of people off, unfortunately. But it makes sense. And that's the thing. You know, very people there are so many people. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love reading Nietzsche and was fascinated by Nietzsche and the idea of the noble individual that stands on their own, apart from everybody, apart from the herd, and all of that. That language sounds very romantic and fascinating, but that sort of lifestyle is very seldom pursued by people who are themselves the subject of a great deal of acceptance. Accepted people usually want to stay that way. And so that's the thing, you know, it's like acceptance. Acceptance is such an extraordinary motivator. Finding a group that welcomes you in and accepts you is such a tremendous motivator in human behavior. And you know, that tribal desire, that tribal instinct, that tribal desire is such a great motivator in who we are. And so if we're I feel like if we're faced with a choice between something boring, an explanation for our eccentricities that is boring and off-putting, and generally off-putting, like autism, or an explanation for our eccentricities that is is flamboyant and attractive and comes with social approval, a tremendous amount of social approval, then we are more naturally going to reach for that. We're more naturally going to go for that. And while I cannot pretend to know the mind of every agendered individual, what this person expressed to me was entirely that. Everything, it's all about feeling accepted, feeling wanted, feeling desired, and wanting to evangelize that feeling of acceptance and desire everybody else. I don't want to be a gatekeeper. I want to welcome everybody in. It's about acceptance. But if we want to live in reality, and if you want to actually make your situation better, you need to deal with reality. And my personal opinion, again, I'm not qualified to diagnose anybody, but my personal opinion is that everything this individual just described is better explained by autism. And if you heard this video and thought that this was some sort of ophobic attack on your group, your club, your identity, and you are now going to accuse me of being whatever phobic, instead of entertaining the idea that this was a sincerely and heartfelt approach towards constructive criticism, if that's what you're going to do, you are proving my point. If you can't tell the difference between what I've said here and bullying, then you are just proving my point. And that is just proving my point that this is a real manifestation of autism. Because again, not being able to tell the difference between bullying and legitimate criticism is a manifestation of autism. So bear that in mind as you prepare to go blue in the keyboard.